I spent a large portion of my life feeling like I was walking in a shadow amongst the rest of the world. I was alone, I was happy, I didn't have to make mistakes in front of everyone, I didn't have anyone judging me, I was comfortable. But at some point I realized, okay, maybe this is going to potentially hinder some of the things that I actually want to do with my life. That I should probably start acting like a normal functioning human being. And so in today's video, I want to talk to you guys, for those of you socially anxious people, the introverts, socially awkward people, how to be less socially anxious in social settings. This is something that I have pretty much dealt with my entire life, and I'd say that I've come a pretty long way. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video, where I'm going to be sharing some of these tips that have tremendously impacted my life. But before we get into the video, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Bridget, and I am a mindset and confidence coach for introverted women. I also have a free Facebook group, so for those of you women who are watching the channel, if you want to be more confident, have better relationships, if you're into personal development, this group is for you. So I'm going to leave that linked in the description below. Don't forget to like this video if you found it helpful or useful in any way. Comment below what you want to see more from me, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. So let's get into the video. I've made so many videos on dealing with social anxiety, how to cope with social anxiety, what it's like being an introvert, my story with selective mutism. And so I don't really want to bore you with any of the backstory or what it's like being an introvert or what it's like being socially anxious, because if you've clicked on this video, you probably already know that. So I'm going to leave those videos linked below. So if you want to know my story and some of the struggles, some of the things that I've dealt with, make sure you go check those out. But for those of you new, I am going to do a quick little rundown of where my journey started and where I am now, because you'll probably trust me more. So when I was about 5 or 6 years old, I was diagnosed with selective mutism, which is essentially a precursor to social anxiety. It's a heightened manifestation of social anxiety in which the child has such a phobia of speaking that they really just don't communicate at all. And so I didn't really communicate to anyone other than family for the first 13 years of my life. And so after that stage, I talked to people, I was able to make friends, and I was able to be myself, or what I thought the world was supposed to see me as, but only to the people that I felt really comfortable with. So you had to know me for a really long time in order for me to show myself completely, to be who I wanted to be confident. And it wasn't until about 3 years ago where I made some pretty drastic changes in my life. And I want to share some of those with you guys. But I also want to share some of the tips that helped me out in my earlier stages, because I don't know where you guys are at in your journey. If you're at the middle, the beginning, the end, I don't know. So some of these have helped me on my earlier stages, and some of them helped me pretty recently. One of the first things that I really had to do when I first started my journey was get really clear on what aspects of a social interaction or a social setting, for that matter, were really triggering for me. What parts made me the most anxious? I worked with a therapist in the earlier stages, and I think this was something that we kind of worked through together and something I used periodically throughout my journey. I needed to understand what aspects of these situations were troubling for me so that the next time I went to go have that, I already knew how my body was going to react. I already knew some of the thoughts that were going to come up. And when you understand the physical and the mental aspects of something that is going to happen, you're a little less likely to think about all those things in the moment. For me, what was really troubling was that when I would go to interact with a person, I wasn't engaged with them. I wasn't present with them. The thoughts that would occupy my mind are, all I can think about is my sweaty hands. All I can think about is if they're looking at me, if they're judging me, if they're thinking about what's coming out of my mouth, if they're thinking about how my voice sounds, right? So I'm gonna be probably silent with you because those are the thoughts that are coming up in my head right now. I can't talk to you. All I can think and hear are the thoughts that are yelling at me in my head. And so I had to kind of understand myself and understand how I reacted. I think it's safe to say that not every socially anxious person gets anxious in the same way. So you really have to understand yourself and how you react and get clear on that. Another thing I had to do periodically, because my journey lasted for quite some time and my life was always changing. I was always changing. I had to challenge some of those negative thoughts that I was having about myself and even about other people in my life, right? So some of the thoughts that came up for me was that when I would go to be in a social setting, I might fail. I might look like an idiot. I might make a fool out of myself or say the wrong thing, right? So if you're socially anxious, chances are you sometimes think about all the negative outcomes that could potentially happen in a social interaction, right? All the things that could happen, which makes you fearful of actually participating in that social interaction. And chances are some of these things might happen, but it's more than likely that most of the time they don't, right? Our mind always goes to that worst case scenario. It's always holding on to fear because that's how we work. We protect ourselves from danger. And people with social anxiety, one of those big fears is messing up, feeling rejected, feeling judged, right? Those are some of the things that I dealt with for a really long time. So I had to challenge some of those thoughts that I was feeling. Yeah, I'm probably gonna be rejected at some point. I'm probably gonna be judged at some point. I'm probably gonna embarrass myself at some point. But we have to keep things in perspective, right? Most of the time, those things probably won't happen. But you have to be pretty honest with yourself and say, well, they could. And chances are at some point they will. When I first heard about the spotlight effect, which I'll get into in a minute, I was shocked that it actually had a name for it because it was something that I felt for a really long time and that I was always my first thought when it came to any kind of social interaction. And it's the tendency to think that others notice your mistakes when they actually don't. Sometimes when I'm in a social setting, not even interacting with anybody, just being in public and I mess up, my first thought is, oh my God, everyone just saw that. Chances are, more than likely, a couple people saw, and that your mistake will be out of their head in less than 2 minutes, right? But I'm so focused on that. My mind goes, oh my God, everyone's judging me. But that was another thing I had to challenge, that thought that, okay, probably no one's staring at you, probably no one's looking at you, probably no one's judging you. And if they are, who cares? Another thing that I want to mention, which was super helpful for me, was that I had to take small steps in order to reach that end goal. When I was younger, I always dreamed of being this like confident, glamorous, extroverted woman. I held on to that image in my head for so long. I wanted it so bad. And it doesn't happen overnight, right? I still don't see myself that way. So I really had to start taking small steps and almost let go of that image. The more I held on to it, the further away it seemed. And so it started out very small. When I was younger, it was about talking a little bit each day, asking more questions in the classroom, being more vulnerable with my friends. And then in like the middle stages of my journey, it was more about finding my personality, finding the right group of people, talking more to extended family members, trying to figure out who I was, which is tricky in your teenage years. And then slowly, it was more about becoming a little bit more independent because there are a lot of things that happen between your late teens and your early 20s that, you kind of have to figure yourself out and start acting like an adult and doing more independent things, which is very hard if you deal with social anxiety, right? Because it's more going to places on your own, going to appointments, going grocery shopping, putting yourself in an entirely new city and trying to make friends, right? Living alone. Those are all super hard things. And at every point, I had to deal with different challenges. And each challenge was about taking small steps to achieve a certain goal. At all of those stages, I was doing very small things each day. Some of the small things that I do now are, sometimes talking to strangers more frequently, going to an event with new people that I've never met before, being vulnerable with the people in my life, making more content like this, getting comfortable with myself to make an offer for coaching, making speeches at family parties, doing virtual retreats, speaking engagements. There are just so many things right now that I'm doing in my life that I wouldn't have even thought about when I was that younger version of myself. I wouldn't have even dreamed. It was about taking small steps each day in order to reach some of those bigger goals. Another thing that has really helped me tremendously is understanding some of my biggest strengths and highlighting those. Because if you're good at certain things and you take time and invest in making sure that you're really good at those things, that's what people are going to remember you for, right? People remember you for who you are, right? I'm a really empathetic person. I'm also a really creative person. I have been since I was a young girl. And every chapter in my life, I'm finding more ways to incorporate that creativity. Right now, I'm trying to implement it in my videos because I love that creative side of me. In my writing, I do it in my writing every single day when I journal. I'm also really funny, which when I was trying to figure out my personality, that was something that I found out along the way. And the more I was able to highlight on all of these strengths, the more that people really saw me and the more confident I became. The last tip I want to share with you guys is to congratulate yourself. And this has probably been one of the most helpful things, especially in the growth that I've had over these past couple of years. Once in a while, take time to really realize how far you've come. At every stage, I think I took a decent amount of time to be like, wow, I've come a really, really long way. And I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of the work that I'm putting into this. For a really long time, I held on to this belief that I was just a shy person, right? But that stopped me from achieving the things that I wanted. And I didn't realize that I could actually change who I was, that I could change some of my beliefs, right? I don't see myself as a shy person. I know I get anxious in social situations, but that doesn't mean I'm a shy person. That doesn't have to stop me from putting in work to make myself less shy, to make myself less anxious. We have the power to do that. It's really just our thoughts that stop us from getting to that next level, getting to that next phase. So I take that time to congratulate myself, all the changes that I've made, all the progress that I've made. And what's helpful is that I've surrounded myself with people in my life who are so encouraging on this journey and who've helped me reach my goals. Surrounding yourself with people who push you to be better is always the way to go, right? It keeps you motivated. It keeps you wanting more and more each day to be that person that you really want to be, to make the changes, to get uncomfortable, right? So these are some of the things that have impacted my life years and years ago and that are still impacting my life right now. So if you are a socially anxious person, I want you to try some of these things out. No matter where you are on your journey, I can guarantee that these things will help you. But before we end today's video, I just wanted to quickly mention that spots for my free consult are open. I'm gonna leave a link for you guys in the description below. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, found it useful and helpful as always, and I will see you next time.